Right, so to coin the immortal words of Britney Spears, oops, he's done it again. Who am I talking about? Keir Starmer, of course, he who never learns. The words can easily be applied to Keir Starmer, who, despite the fact the previous 4 attack ads that his party have published against Rishi Sunak have delivered no real Labour gains, according to the latest polls, and has only harmed the party in the eyes of the electorate, putting people off the Labour Party, Starmer has released a 5th ad, and on the face of it, actually, it's not that bad, but dig a bit deeper, and actually, he's just handed the Tories another stick to beat him with. The latest ad, released last Saturday, reads, "Do you think your council tax should be 15% higher? Rishi Sunak does. The Tories are raising council tax by up to 15%. Conservative councils already charge £345 more than Labour ones. A Labour government would freeze your council tax this year, funded by a proper windfall tax on oil and gas giants." Right. First off, the obvious, or more obvious point, which has drawn criticism of Labour already and which they're still absolutely tone deaf over, so full of shit they've had to grow a new arsehole because of it, is the fact that they'd freeze council tax this year. They aren't in power. They've been told repeatedly and reminded repeatedly that they are not in power. It'd have to be a big national budgeting decision to do that, so they cannot deliver on this. It's a worthless pledge, but it's Keir Starmer, after all, so what's new? That said, it's also utterly irrelevant to the local elections, even though many of you watching this might think otherwise. Local councils deciding how much to raise council tax as they do. That's not the issue here, though. Labour says it'd freeze council tax for all. That's not local level stuff. So that's the already debated, ridiculed, and now repeated part of this poster. It's the bit about raising council tax by up to 15% that is imploding on Team Keith now, because only one council in the country is facing such a massive council tax increase, and that is Croydon Council in South London. It's blowing up in Labour's face because Starmer's Labour lost control of Croydon Council last year, in last year's local elections, after 8 years of controlling it. There's no blaming Corbyn for that one, sunshine. That election saw Labour remain the largest party on Croydon Council with 34 seats. The Tories second on 32, now 33 seats, following a by-election for a vacant seat, with the Greens winning 2 seats for the very first time and a Lib Dem returning to the council for the first time since 2002. Although the Tories came second by seat numbers, they won the mayoralty, putting them in charge. Bearing in mind, last year's local elections were bad for the Tories. Losing councils like Barnet and Westminster, for Labour to lose Croydon was a bit of an anomaly. But there's a story behind it, and it plays into this council tax charge. Croydon Council effectively declared itself bankrupt in 2020, leaving it unable to pay for basic services to be delivered to people. Baseline competence for a council. But the reasoning given for the financial problems were apparently property deals the council had made going sour. There were even allegations that these weren't even lawful. A formal fraud investigation got opened up. Now, the Tory government came up with a bailout plan for them, £150 million for the council over 4 years. A Labour council begging bowl passed to the Tory government in order to afford to run basic services there. You can imagine local Tories crowing about that one. But we aren't finished, though. February 2022 arrived. Another £25 million bailout was paid out as the Labour administration there again stuffed up and failed to get a handle on their financial situation. So it's little wonder the Tories managed to take over in the local election held just 3 months later. But then they needed a bailout too, just last November, having been making cuts and selling off assets, continuing to do the things that the previous Labour administration had already begun. Yet they still faced a £130 million black hole in spending, and they have debt topping £1.2 billion, of which it has to cop up £47 million a year to reduce and pay off. Anyway, a long story short, the 15% council tax hike is in response to trying to make up this black hole. And of course, you can point to the Tory administration of the last year as having not done enough, going about things the wrong way. By all means, criticise what is going to be an appallingly unaffordable tax hike on many ordinary people in Croydon. But there's no getting away from the fact it was the previous Labour administration that built up much of the debt. The Tories love to paint themselves as the more economically credible party. They've got a stick to beat Croydon's Labour councillors with, something awful. But for Keir Starmer to attack Rishi Sunak for putting Croydon's council tax up by so much has led to national accusations of economic credibility now being aimed at him, instead of what had been a more local fight between the two parties, where central government had given the local government permission to do all of this to rebuild its finances from the previous administration. I'm not saying I agree that this is the right way to do it. I do not. Council tax hikes are foul. They are a deeply unfair tax. They're a very regressive tax in a great many ways. The Tories are placing the burden of paying this debt off on ordinary people, as they always do. That means more of those people with greater means are getting let off the hook, as they generally always are with the Tories. And pretty much that administration is now saying to the people of Croydon, yeah, you're in pain, but blame Labour for it, not us, the people actually inflicting more pain on you. Starmer has sleepwalked into taking on some of the burden of blame here himself by pointing this out, trying to get a gotcha on the Tories, and now it's blowing up in his face to the point the rancid right-wing Tory backing, even now, media are making a massive issue out of it for Starmer directly. It is yet another stupid attack ad that has again blown up in his pasty face. He just doesn't learn. He won't ever accept he's doing the wrong thing and will not address the mistakes he's making. If he wants to gain ground and actually build a lead with solid foundations, then he needs to start spelling out a vision of what Labour would do with him in charge. But Starmer still, after 3 years as leader, seems absolutely allergic to that simple, obvious concept. And his poll lead, built upon the incompetence and corruption of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss, is disappearing like sand, and certainly not helped either when he gives Rishi Sunak's government and supporters ammunition to fire back on him like he has done once again here. Ditch those attack ads. They're pathetic. They're sad. Build a vision instead, or fail. He either faces up to that, others force him to, or he needs to get out or be removed. And as much as I don't believe he'd be any different in effect to the government we have now should he become Prime Minister, Starmer is going to hand the blue Tories yet another 5 years in power if he carries on trying and failing to out-Tory them. Thanks for watching. If you appreciated this video, please do hit like and subscribe, leave a comment and hit the notification bell too so you don't miss the next one. Also, look out for me on social media and other interesting stuff by clicking on the Linktree link in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Cheers, folks.